I'm Jonah Comstock, Editor-in-Chief of Pharma Forum, and I'm here at Bio 2025. I'm joined by Pierre Arséne, CEO and founder of Mursla Bio.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for meeting with me.
Sure.
So, Pierre, tell me a little bit about Mursla Bio, what you guys do, and what you're doing here at the show today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your interest. So today is an interesting day for us because yesterday we made an interesting new announcement about the company, and I'm excited to talk more about this. In short, Mursla Bio is what we call dynamic biopsy-based platform, and the lead product that we have is for liver cancer surveillance, which is a new way to detect liver cancer among patients with cirrhosis, which is a scarring of the tissue. This is our lead product that we announced a few months ago. We are excited to have received the first FDA breakthrough device designation as well over the last 5 years for that test last month. And we are Cambridge, UK based initially, where we have R&D labs, and then we just opened an office in Boston and about to open also a new lab, hopefully in the East Coast in the United States by the end of next year to commercialize and sell our tests called EvoLiver, which stands for the evolution and also the extracellular vesicle-based type of science that we use for the liver. So in short.
So you're sort of in the diagnostic space.
Yes, that's right.
I always find that interesting when I get to talk to a diagnostics company because so many of the biotechs around are in therapeutics. Tell me a little bit about kind of what that market is like, who you're up against.
Sure.
What do they say? It's standard of care is.
Yeah. So let's focus on our lead products, and so this is for liver cancer surveillance. So which is the idea is to replace the ultrasound, which is recommended every 6 months for people with cirrhosis, in order to try to detect if there is the cirrhosis is turning into hepatocellular carcinoma, which is a liver cancer, and those patients have up to 20% chance, in the next 5 years of their life to get to have liver cancer, which is massive, and therefore in the United States. The clinical guidelines for people with cirrhosis, they are recommended to have ultrasound every 6 months to see if it's happening, right? Especially because liver cancer is fairly aggressive. So today, which is reimbursed, fully established, also in Europe, is the same. If you have diagnosed cirrhosis, you have access, and also certain cases hepatitis as well. You have access to this program. You're followed by a hepatologist, which is HE, so hepatologist, not pathologist, hepatologist, which are specialized in liver diseases, right? So they want you to make sure you have this test every 6 months. The challenge with liver cancer surveillance using ultrasound is that the early stage sensitivity is poor, around 30%, right, give or take, which is when actually you can have access to nearly curative surgery. So it's really make a big difference with ablation, resections, and to some extent you can have transplants as well. And the survival rate after 5 years is over 70%, 70. If you do not do that, most of the case today in the US, you would only get detected medium to late stage, and you will be given probably targeted therapies with a survival rate of 17%, below 20% at 5 years.
Wow.
So there's
a big difference.
So there's a massive difference if you can do that. Ultrasound, not only the early stage sensitivity is poor, suboptimal, I would say technically, as also the adherence, which means the number of people showing up every 6 months is below or around 20%, right? So there's a massive missed opportunity today because of the early stage sensitivity, which is low, and also the adherence, because ultrasound, you need a separate appointment in a hospital setting. People don't necessarily go, so they know it's complicated for them to detect anything anyway. So that's where we come in with our test EvoLiver, which is a blood-based test, right? And we can talk about the science behind, is to replace ultrasound. And we've shown our latest results that we could detect over 80% in terms of early stage sensitivity as opposed. So it's really a step change if you do.
Yeah.
And also.
And it's just given as part of a blood panel.
Yeah, in this specific case, some patients for cirrhosis, they might be tested once in a while about, I would say, kind of standard tests, including alpha-fetoprotein, certain enzymes for livers. So this will be on the side, right? So done in parallel at the same time. So you literally you go with your blood collection kit to your private lab, give it to them, you take a blood draw, send it to us, and we get the results directly to the pathologist for them to manage their patients. Right? So that's the key aspect. And the third unique selling point is not only for patients, but also for payers, for the system. If you convince the patient, the clinician is not sufficient. You need to convince the system that your test is cost efficient. So if you can detect much earlier these patients, the cost to them is much lower because ablation, resection, and the weighted average of the cost is around $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
If you wait for targeted therapies over a year and a half, life expectancy costs $300,000. Right?
So it's both
so you
less
can divide by
effective
10.
and more expensive.
So that's really the unique opportunity. It's not always the case for other cancers. So you need to really show his outcome, right? Outcome and cost efficiency. So that's really what the blood-based test that we put forward with our exercise physical-based science can change this standard of care. So that's the how it is today, and the ultrasound plus a little test is reimbursed. So the idea is not to add an intervention, but to replace an intervention with a premium, because you definitely do much better, because you make a lot of people save money, and the system save money and save lives.
That's really, really interesting. How did you go about getting this breakthrough designation, and what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think for us it's an important and invisible milestone to show several things. One is our commitment to the United States. So initially we are based about Cambridge, UK, with a multinational, international team. We expanded, we opened an office in Boston, nearby, and we already had in mind to start with the United States, but it's a clear statement, this is our focus. So number one. Number two is we know how to engage with the regulatory bodies, including the FDA, despite what's happening. And we know how to kind of explain the clinical needs. We show a number of analytical validations, technical validations. And last but not least, we demonstrate to them that we really try to answer a very high clinical need, which is today these challenges that the standard of care is facing for them. So this means all three things. And of course, the last one for, I would say, more global audience is the FDA brand to it. Shows that, it's obviously very serious, and, we can be accelerated if we demonstrate additional proof of concept, proof of validations that we need for reimbursement.
Yeah. From the headlines, you would have thought there was absolute chaos at the FDA, but what I'm learning at this conference is that when it comes to actually, doing the work, meeting their dates, getting approvals, it seems like it's still kind of business as usual. I guess in your case.
Yeah, in our case, so we engage with the imaging, I forgot the exact terms, right? Radiology imaging departments, and also they do biomarkers and so on. So it's slightly different from therapeutics. You could see that they were, very engaged. They have some kind of deadline to get back to you, and they always met their deadlines. So on that front, that was positive. There's one thing I can say based on possibly, which is a good thing, based on our regulatory and reimbursement advisors who've done this for a living for the last 20 years, they felt that the FDA criteria to get the FDA breakthrough are much higher now. I think, although I don't want to speak more broadly, but there was the feeling, a perception that maybe certain breakthrough in the past, let's say, were given without necessarily checking further in terms of clinical evidence, maybe. And this time they really, really focused on more the intended use population. Is your study in line with the intended use populations? Because it's relatively easy to use retrospective samples and sort of put things together that's not necessarily aligned with the intended use population, which leads to lower approval rates, right? So they focus on this, and they focus, of course, on the technical aspect of the tests, right? But he feels that, and according to them, that the bar is definitely higher, and I guess for the better.
That's really interesting. What comes next for you, both in terms of leveraging this designation and moving into the market, and then you said this is just your lead product. You have other things you're working on in the pipeline.
Yes. So we are going to move forward with this product. As I mentioned, we will opener what we call centralized lab tests, LDT-based lab in the US by next year, which means our shop will be open. We'll be working with certain health systems with early access programs and other types of, I would say, stakeholders that are interested to under investigational use to pay and reimburse the test or to use the test for their population. And on top of this, we will be joining a very exciting study going on in the United States, sponsored by the NIH, which is the kind of a randomized controlled trial, which is a gold standard, if you will, if you want to demonstrate outcome, which is important, that will lead to changing guidelines that will lead for reimbursement. And we are clearing discussion, but we should be able to join this study and make us save a lot of money because you have two arms. You have basically you have called tracer. You have one which is a standard of care with ultrasound, where you follow the patients, and you have another arm for blood-based biomarkers, and they collect those very precious samples for actually very innovative tests like us to be able to use and demonstrate not only superiority but outcomes throughout this randomized controlled trial. So that's our next step for us, is to have this so that we can get into the guidelines and reimbursements, right? At a really, I would say, in a very capital efficient way, which is definitely a plus these days for given the market conditions. I want to add that for this product, the FDA approval now is not a must because of what's been happening between the FDA trying to take over the LDT system, and in the end, it's not going to happen. So we had a plan for that, but now it's not needed. So there might be possibilities with this tracer study to also show, what we call clinical validity aspect of it, with some complementary things at also relatively limited costs. So that's a very unique and exciting opportunity, once in a generation opportunity for us to do that at limited cost in a very fully compelling way for not only the payers, the guidelines, the clinical guidelines, and also maybe for the FDA. Right? So this is the whole package you need ultimately to be able to change the guidelines and change the system, and that's really our focus. The thing we announced yesterday is also something that we felt we had to do ultimately. So if you have to think about the test like a car, right? So then if you want, you're not focusing on the detail of the car, the engine and so on. It's not really, people don't really care. It's like your iPhone, right? There are 15 Nobel Prizes inside it. You just care about the app, right? You don't care about how it works. And if this is a car, I think this time yesterday we wanted to sort of make more disclosure, explain more about the engine behind, right? So how do you do this, ultimately? Because we think it has a lot of value, and we wanted to explain how this engine works. And so we call it AI Precision Medicine Platform, which is ultimately behind the test, and it's built on extracervical science, so unique data sets we can build, and I'm happy to go into details based on tissue-specific markers that are in the blood, and we found a new way to label them and to look at them, which has been a big challenge in liquid biopsy and precision medicine. So yesterday we disclosed this AI Precision Medicine platform with a first preprint that goes into a good amount of detail of one part of the platform, and we felt it's a good time also to share that and try to look for collaborations. We already had many inbound requests, which made me believe that we should talk more about this, right? So these are really, I would call it, the two pillars of value creation for Mursla today. You have this lead test, which is, let's say, the car, and also the engine, right? So we're going to partnership. We want to expand to other liver disease indications and also to other organs and other cancers. The opportunity not only for early cancer detection, which is the first case, the good case study that we use to show the value of the platform, but also for therapeutics monitoring, companion diagnostic / patient stratifications, potentially for surrogate markers to help people doing clinical trials, right? And also what is quite successful use case in liquid biopsy called minimal residual disease, and called MRD, which can predict in advance before the MRI if you're gonna have the tumor to grow after you have remission, right? So then you can take certain steps, and we believe we can do at least a very good job for liver cancer as well, specifically, without going to the scientific details. But so these are the two pillars, and we focus on advancing both. One can help to finance the other, depending on market conditions, right? And it's like the yin and the yang. If one goes, is valued, then you value the other ones. Because if you have a nice engine, of course, all of a sudden the car is better, has more value, right? Now, if you just have an engine, it doesn't have much value unless you have a car, right? So that's really what we want.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, Pierre. Really interesting stuff. And I wish you the best of luck. Sounds like an exciting time for Mursla.
Thank you. Thank you very much.